Hello, hello. We're going to give folks just another couple minutes to join us if they plan to. We appreciate you all being here.
So vamos a dar, a las personas unos minutos más para que puedan llegar aquí a esta junta.
All right, if you're just joining us, we're going to give another minute here in case anybody else wants to join us, then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, we're at 6:04, so I think it's time we go ahead and get going. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nick Giramonte. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services for Dixon Unified School District. I wanted to quickly introduce a couple of other people who are joining us here from the school district. And so I'll just go with who's in the upper left corner on my screen, and that's Ms. Chantel McCammon, who until tomorrow is the principal of Gretchen Higgins School, and then will be joining us at the district office as a new coordinator of outreach, engagement, and innovation. We have Aimee Echeverria. Yeah, thank you, Mac. We have Aimee Echeverria. She is going to translate tonight as needed. I don't know if we have folks who need translation, but Aimee, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let people know that?
Mm-hmm. So, hola a todos, yo soy Aimee Echeverría, estoy aquí para traducir para cualquier persona que lo necesite. No sé si hay alguien aquí ahorita que a lo mejor lo necesite, pero en caso sí, nomás si me muestren una mano así para que yo pueda saber. Gracias.
All right, and then I want to welcome Yvette Ramos, who is our principal of alternative programs here in Dixon Unified School District.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we also have one of our school board members here today, so I want to make sure I introduce her. That is Jewel Fink. Hello, Trustee Fink. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. And folks, the way we're going to run tonight is we're going to try and keep things moving. We know it's summertime and it's a hot day, and folks have evening plans. So we have a lot of questions that people put into the surveys that they did, and so we have noted those already. So we'll be doing a program overview, and then we're going to dig into those questions that you all had, and then at the end, if needed, any other questions that you guys have, we'll be happy to answer them as best we can. I want to start though tonight and just sort of talk about really what we're talking about, just to make sure, because I think there was some confusion on the survey. So the first thing that you need to know is that Dixon Unified, as of right now, so June 29th, 2021, is planning a full in-person return to school in the fall. So no restrictions on class sizes. Every student will be welcome back at our schools. We did have some questions around masks. As of right now, we don't have a definitive answer on that. If school were to open today, we do know that we would have to have students in masks. But again, as we know, things change fairly quickly in these as the pandemic wanes at this point. So we don't know for sure about masks. If you're asking me, I think it's likely that we would start school with masks. But in any case, what the district will do is we'll follow guidance from the health authorities as we have all along. I also want to mention that when we do reopen, again, a full reopening in the fall, that will be done with some additional supports in place for our students. Those include additional mental health supports for our students and additional academic supports for our students. We know that our students have had some trauma through this process and need some more support. And we also know that we've had some students that have some catch up to do with regard to their learning. We've had gaps that have always existed in our district, if we're being honest, but we know that those have been somewhat exacerbated. So it's going to be a full reopen with some additional resources in place. So tonight really isn't about that. We know that we're going to open. We're not going to debate whether that's a good idea. We're not going to debate masks or anything like that. That's for the school board meetings, which are the first and third Thursdays of every month. Please join us at those. I think I speak for Trustee Fink and all the board members that they love to have parent participation at those meetings. So feel free to join us. Tonight really is going to be focused on an alternative program to the full return to school, and what we're calling at this point an independent learning program. And we'll get into what that is as we move through our meeting. I do want to say first and start about why are we even talking about this? We had that question come up in the survey a number of times. And there are three primary reasons that we need to be talking about this program. First of all, we're exploring this model because we've heard from families in the community that there's some interest in this, and we want to make sure that we honor that to see what kind of interest there really is. We know that some people are interested in continuing to have their students learn at home. We know that some families have ongoing legitimate concerns about health and safety and want to explore all options available to their families with regard to that. We have a number of families who've indicated that they aren't comfortable sending their kids back to school until their kids are able to be vaccinated. Again, those are family choices. We cannot require students to be vaccinated with the COVID vaccines. So we won't require, we can't require that at this point. And lastly, in this era, it's important to offer families choice. And so we want to hear from you tonight, explain where our thinking is right now, and then also hear your thinking to make sure that what we are able to create is in line with the choices that would be good for you. If you hear children in the background, I apologize. I'm at home doing this meeting, and they're very energetic. A couple of other pieces I want to talk about. We're not going to get into tonight. We will discuss curriculum in as much as how curriculum in the independent learning program reflects what happens in what we call the regular program. But we're not going to talk about curricular offerings. That's a separate, again, set of meetings. What I will say, and we'll hit on this as the meeting goes on, is that what we expect students to learn in independent learning is absolutely 100% in line with what we expect kids to do in regular schooling. Obviously, there are some limitations, but in as much as we possibly can, kids will be expected to learn the same standards, same units of study, et cetera, as we get going on. And the last thing I really want to say as we get going, and I'm going to let the other folks talk, you'll be glad to hear them over me, I promise, is that we are not doing distance learning 2.0. This is not a repeat of what students experienced through March of last year in Dixon Unified. It's also not a repeat of what they experienced after March when students returned in a hybrid learning model. This is a completely different model. We can get into that a little bit here if we need to, but this is in line with what is legal, frankly, by state law, and also with what sort of practices are occurring in other places across the state. And they've actually occurred over the course of many years in Dixon Unified in California pre-pandemic. So without further ado, I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mack and to Ms. Ramos for an update, just an overview of where our thinking is right now with regard to independent learning.
Thank you so much. Ms. Echeverria, did you need to go ahead and translate?
Sure.
Mac, I'm not hearing you, sorry.
Thank you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I can
Can
hear
you guys hear me? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, go ahead, Ms. Echeverria.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. So, en general, ¿verdad? Lo que vamos a hablar en esta junta va a ser explorando el modelo de esto que va a ser aprendizaje independiente, que no va a ser como era el aprendizaje a la distancia. So, esta junta sí se va a hablar de eso. No es nada de discutiendo de las cosas que cómo vamos a abrir, porque sí sabemos que empezando en agosto todos los estudiantes iban a regresar como normal. Todavía no sabemos de las máscaras, pero como dije, eso no es lo que vamos a hablar en esta junta. Sí, nomás va a ser pues lo que está lo que está pensando el distrito en hacer con el aprendizaje independiente.
All right, thank you. So like you heard Mr. Giramonti say before, this is not distance learning 2.0 like we did last year and then transitioning into hybrid. But what we're doing today is talking about independent learning. And we really want to focus on the fact that we're in the planning stages right now. Mr. Giramonti is coming back in, sorry about that. We are in the planning stages, and a lot of independent learning is going to be more guided but self-directed. And so there will be heavy emphasis on families supporting students as they participate in this type of programming. We will, of course, provide curriculum for all of our students, and the curriculum that's provided will, of course, be aligned with our other district programs, very similar to what students would receive should they return to in-person. There will be a large amount of online learning with this, and so there may be projects, there may be times in which students have to access the Google Suite. Maybe they have to turn things in on Google Classroom and create different assignments using the Google platform. And so that's going to be a huge piece of this. And so we're hoping that any family that does choose this is comfortable using the technology. This does not mean that we're Zooming again, like we did this past school year. This is not that. Again, this is guided but self-directed. We are going to emphasize that the communication is there with all of our families, and the way that we're doing that is through a master agreement that Ms. Ramos is going to talk to us about here shortly after Ms. Echeverria translates.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. So lo que sí están haciendo, ¿verdad? Ahorita vamos a hablar de la descripción general del aprendizaje independiente. Sí es importante de saber que sí estamos en los principios, ¿verdad? De la planificación de ello. El modelo sí es algo guiado, pero autodirigido. So sí es importante entender eso, que sí va a ser los estudiantes que están en casa haciendo proyectos, que sí puede ser sobre la computadora, puede ser papel, puede ser papeleo, pero sí ellos todavía van a hacer pues lo mismo que están haciendo los estudiantes que están en las clases regulares. Y ahorita sí vamos a hablar del contrato que sí se va a requerir para poder pues hacer el aprendizaje independiente.
Thank you, Ms. Echeverria, and it's good to see you. The master agreement is a key component in any independent study program or independent learning program, as it's a legal mandate from the state. Families will be required to meet and complete a master agreement, which in effect is a contract between families and the school district. The master agreement outlines all the components of roles and responsibilities of the program, the role of the parent, the role of the student, the role of the teacher. It will also outline all of the rules, for lack of a better word, when we talk about what constitutes success for the learning and what does not.
So, como dijimos, sí va a tener que haber un contrato entre la familia y el distrito. Y este contrato sí es algo que es requerido del Estado, y el contrato va, pues, describirá las responsabilidades del estudiante, de la familia y también del instructor o instructora del aprendizaje independiente.
And I think it's important just to reiterate what Mr. Giramonti said earlier. Distance learning is not going to be the same program that your child experienced anytime between March 13th, 2020 and now. And so our K-5 folks, it is a little bit easier to implement, and for our secondary students at this time we cannot guarantee an A through G program. So Mr. Giramonti, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'll just real quick on what A through G is, just so folks we don't miss folks on that. A through G are the required series of courses that kids need to take to be qualified for CSU and UC entrance exams. So that's not to say that at this point we cannot guarantee that. That's obviously something that we would strive to do. We just can't guarantee that at this point. So I may go ahead. Or
Sí,
sorry, Ms.
so
Echeverria, sorry.
So algo importante de entender es que el aprendizaje independiente sí es completamente diferente al aprendizaje a la distancia. So no es algo que va a ser, no se va a ver igual, ¿verdad? So eso sí es algo que queremos que ustedes sepan. La otra cosa, a ver. I am blanking on like what just happened.
Oh, sorry, the A through G?
It was, yeah.
Thank you. So algo también del aprendizaje independiente es de que ahorita no se puede garantizar que tengan los cursos de A a G, que esos cursos son requeridos para que los estudiantes se puedan ir al colegio del CSU o del UC. Solo más eso es algo que ahorita todavía no hay, pues no está seguro.
Eso solo se aplica a los estudiantes que están en la secundaria. So that A through G question, by the way, folks, is only applicable to students at the high schools, so Main Prairie and Dixon High School. It's not applicable to K-8 students. I want to talk real quick about some other program considerations. It may sound like right now we're still fairly high level with some of the details, and you're not wrong in that assumption. We've got program design is going to be somewhat dependent on actual interest in the program. If we have 100 families that are interested in this, that tells us one thing about the level of interest in the community and how many resources we need to put toward it. If we have 10, then we may have to have a conversation about whether or not this is something that's possible for the district at this point. Part of it is we have a responsibility to allocate resources responsibly. And so the more students that are interested, the more we'd be able to do with regard to programming. So part of that will just sort of depend. And I don't want folks to feel like, we know that end of June is not necessarily the best time to be doing these types of meetings. So just because there's a few people here tonight, we don't actually think this reflects the actual interest in the district. So if somebody's not here, doesn't mean that we can't welcome them later on. We'll be posting this video online. People will be able to still participate whether or not they do this. A big part of it for us is staffing. These require teachers, other support staff to be part of this. And if we've only got so many teachers, and if they're busy teaching other students, and they can't do this type of program. So we got to figure out where that line is. I've been asked, like, what's the minimum number of students to make this program go? And I simply don't have the answer to that question at this point. Sorry, I'm going to turn off my video as I've got a visitor. Sorry, he's asking for Mr. Dolan. He thinks he likes to watch Mr. Dolan on this. The other piece is that we are obligated to run a legally compliant program, and there's ed code you can go look up on how you run these types of programs. We are familiar with the ed code because we've actually run independent study programs or independent learning programs in the past. One big wrinkle to this, however, and this has something to do with the times, is that there is pending legislation that may change all of this on us here, nothing like the last minute. So we are watching all of that. How that will impact this is really dependent on what the final law is, and even if it passes. So, but we have to be compliant. We can't just do what we want to do.
Ok, so algo importante del diseño de este programa sí es pues la interés de las familias, ¿verdad? Como dijo Mr. Geramani, que dependiendo de cuántas familias sí pues muestren interés, va a decir cómo va a ir el programa, porque sí, claro que necesitamos maestros y personas para poder ser parte de ello. Él dice que sí le han preguntado, ¿verdad? Si hay un número que vamos a necesitar para poder hacer el programa, y dice que pues todavía no tenemos ese número. Y también dice que hay unas leyes que a lo mejor estén pasando que va a cambiar todo esto completamente. O sea, como sea ahorita, como dijimos, ¿verdad? Estamos en los principios de planear todo esto, esperando pues que pase con las leyes.
Thank you, Amy. So we're going to get now into the questions that were asked of us on the surveys. We'll move through those. We pre-scripted some answers here, so this should move fairly quickly for us. And we'll hold your questions. You may have questions that come up after that, but if you've got questions now, there's a really good chance that the question that you have may be part of this answer. So if you can hang tight with us,
all right.
I appreciate it. Go ahead, Mac.
All right, thank you. So a very popular question is how is independent learning different from distance learning? And this is just, again, families are going to be given the curricular activities and materials and lesson plans. And then the students will not be logged on into the classroom, like I said previously. And that participation really happens at school, in the physical classroom. So families will have to meet with the independent learning teacher or the teacher advisor at least once or twice a week. And is this going to be like Zoom? No, this is not going to be like Zoom. This is, again, students will meet with a teacher advisor 1 to 2 times per week. Again, independent learning is guided but self-directed, so happening at home. Aimee, do you want to go ahead and do those 2 questions? Can you hear me? Oh no. You can't hear me?
I think Ms. Mack froze for a minute. You're back.
Oh
Are you
no.
back?
Okay. All right. I don't know where I ended, but I was just
So
saying, is this going to be like Zoom? Did you hear that one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So again, this is independent learning and this is guided but a self-directed. So happening at home is what's really most important there with understanding what we're going to be doing if offering independent learning program. Aimee?
Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Mack. So una de las preguntas, ¿verdad?, que han tenido es ¿qué es la diferencia entre el aprendizaje independiente al aprendizaje a la distancia? Y si las familias sí van a recibir materiales, ¿verdad?, y planes de lecciones, la cosa es que los estudiantes no se van a registrar en su salón de clases, ¿verdad?, sobre Zoom como lo hicieron antes. Lo que va a hacer en este programa sería que los estudiantes se reunirán con su instructor 1 o 2 veces a la semana. Algo, como dijimos, no va a ser sobre Zoom, no se va a ver así. Como dijimos en el principio, este programa está guiado es algo guiado pero autodirigido.
Okay. Another popular question was, how will standards be measured? And the way that we will do that is students will, to the most extent possible and practicable, yeah, that's what I'm saying, will follow the same curricular outlines as the students that are in the regular program at school in person. This will include the assessments that they have to take. The independent learning teacher advisor will be, of course, in touch with families about student progress by communicating with them, because again, there's a commitment to doing 1 to 2 times per week.
So, otra pregunta, ¿verdad?, que se ha preguntado es cómo se va a medir los estándares y los estudiantes en la medida de lo más posible, ¿verdad?, van a seguir los mismos esquemas curriculares que los estudiantes en el programa normal están haciendo. Y esto también va a incluir las evaluaciones y asesamentos que hace pues las escuelas y los maestros o los instructores sí van a estar pues en comunicación con las familias del progreso de los estudiantes.
So moving on, another question that we came across was about extracurricular activity. And students who are in an independent learning program will have the ability to join their home school for extracurricular activities and clubs and the like.
So, otra pregunta que sí había fue si estudiantes podrían participar en actividades extracurriculares. Y es sí, ¿verdad? Los estudiantes sí pueden participar en esas actividades en la escuela donde pertenecen.
In terms of communication or points of contact for families, it's my expectation that families and students will have a positive two-way communication stream with their teacher.
Para la comunicación, ¿verdad?, entre los instructores y las familias y estudiantes, sí estamos esperando que sí va a haber una comunicación positiva entre ellos.
And another, again, popular question was, are kids able to move at their own pace? What if they're above grade level? So students will be expected at minimally to move at the pace of a typical student in the regular or classroom program. As with all students who are in a regular program, Those that are ready to move on with enrichment will receive it as necessary from their teacher. And students who fall behind, and this is really important, students who fall behind the regular coursework will be returned to a classroom program.
So, otro de las preguntas que sí han habido es que si los estudiantes se pueden mover en su ritmo propio y qué pasa con los estudiantes que a lo mejor están avanzados, ¿verdad? Y la respuesta es que sí se espera que los estudiantes se muevan minimalmente al ritmo pues, de los estudiantes que están en el programa regular, al igual como los estudiantes en el programa regular, los estudiantes preparados para el enriquecimiento sí lo recibirán a lo necesario con su instructor. Y una cosa muy importante de saber también es que los estudiantes que se retrasen en este trabajo, ¿verdad? En este programa sí van a tener que regresar al programa regular en persona.
Thank you, Ms. Echeverria. The next question we have is who will oversee students as they complete their coursework? And again, independent learning is guided but self-directed, and students will not be directly supervised by an instructor or teacher advisor throughout the day. This is where families are really going to need to ensure that the students are completing their assigned work and activities. This program may not be as successful for a family that doesn't have an adult at home during the school day. Again, there's going to be more self-directed at home. And so we want to make sure that all of our students are successful, and having an adult at home will help in that process. This is a full day program. And so students are expected to learn and complete their grade level standards as they are in independent learning.
Otra pregunta que había es quién supervisará a los estudiantes mientras están completando los cursos. Y como dijimos en el principio, ¿verdad? El aprendizaje independiente es un programa guiado pero autodirigido. Los estudiantes no van a estar supervisados por un instructor durante todo el día. Las familias deben de asegurarse que los estudiantes estén completando los trabajos asignados. Sí es posible que este programa, ¿verdad?, no sea tan exitoso para las familias que no tengan un adulto en casa durante el día escolar. Como dijimos, sí es todo el día, ¿verdad?, como si estando en el programa regular. Y sí, pues es un programa escolar, como dijimos. Yep.
Thank you. Can you switch your child back into in-person at any time? The answer is yes, you could. Of course, we would not encourage to go in and out into independent learning and then back to in-person. We would not encourage that, just given transitions in that loss of learning. So.
Otra pregunta sí fue que si alguien empieza en este programa, si se puede regresar al programa regular en persona. Y la respuesta es que sí. Lo que no, ¿verdad? Lo que no queremos ver es de que personas cambian, ¿verdad? De ir un rato aquí en el aprendizaje independiente y después regresar a la clase regular y después regresar a este programa. Eso es algo que no queremos ver, ¿verdad? Porque tantas transiciones no necesariamente es mejor para los estudiantes.
Thank you. And that's a nice segue into the next question is, can we access this program for short-term purposes, such as a vacation, quarantine, and et cetera? And the short answer to that is no. Every student, every school site has a process for short-term independent study, and students in those scenarios are able to work with their school site for short-term independent study.
Otra pregunta fue, ¿este programa es algo que se pueda usar para tiempo como vacaciones o cuarentena, donde los estudiantes no estarán en su clase regular? Y la respuesta es que no. Los estudiantes en esos casos pueden utilizar el proceso de estudio independiente que cada escuela sí tiene.
And the next question is, are there limits to students who can participate? And there are a few. And these include special education. For our students with disabilities, we encourage them to return to in-person instruction and so that they can receive their legally mandated specialized services. We discourage our English language learners from participating in an independent learning program. And we believe that if your student is not at grade level, this program would not best suit them, as independent learning is guided but self-directed.
I want to piggyback on that if I could. I may, with our students who are below grade level, as I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the meeting, we have structures in place pre-pandemic to serve students in intervention models to get them caught up, and we're adding to those, knowing that we're going to have more need for that. And we will really, really struggle to provide those services in an independent learning model. So this is why we're encouraging those students who are not at grade level, that those families really consider coming back to the regular program. We believe that's the best place for those students. That's our professional opinion.
So otra pregunta que sí había es, ¿hay límites para quien pueda participar en este programa? Y en realidad sí hay unos límites. El distrito sí siente que para nuestros estudiantes que están en la educación especial, sí sentimos que los alentamos a que regresen en persona para recibir todos los servicios, ¿verdad? Especializados que se exige la ley. También nuestros estudiantes que todavía están aprendiendo el inglés, sí pensamos que sería mejor estar en clase regular, y también creemos, ¿verdad?, que si su estudiante no está al nivel del grado, que este programa a lo mejor no sería mejor, ¿verdad?, porque como dijimos, este programa es algo guiado, pero autodirigido. Y algo que sí dijo Mr. Germani fue de que sí, antes de la pandemia, ¿verdad?, sí tenemos servicios para nuestros estudiantes que están bajo del nivel de grado, ¿verdad? Tenemos intervención y sí, el distrito va a tener más de esos, especialmente este año con todo lo que pasó. So, sí sienten, ¿verdad?, que es importante que los estudiantes regresen, ¿verdad? Especialmente porque para los estudiantes que no están a nivel de grado, sería difícil poder dándolo todas estas intervenciones en este programa.
Okay, and finally, there were questions around technology expectations, and the district will provide all needed technology. However, as Ms. Mack mentioned earlier, students and families will need to be comfortable with technology on their own to fully access all the curricular materials. And that is the end of the questions that were vetted from the survey. Mr. Germani, next steps. Did we lose Mr. Germani?
He had to step away for a second, but if we can have Ms. Echeverria.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Ms. Echeverria. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, una de las últimas preguntas, ¿verdad?, es cuáles son las expectativas tecnológicas para este programa, y el distrito sí va a dar todas las cosas que necesiten los estudiantes y familias, pero como dijimos, ¿verdad?, sí es importante que las familias se sienten cómodos pues usando la tecnología, porque, ¿verdad?, este programa es algo guiado, pero autodirigido, y como dijimos, van a haber proyectos y otras cosas que sí van a ser sobre la computadora.
All right. So, Mac, did you have a question? Another question?
Yes, I did. I got a question in the chat, which is a great question, and the parent wanted to know. Let me make sure I go back to the question. I apologize. So for the activities through the homeschool, does that mean that they need to register with their school since they're new to the district? And the answer is yes, you do need to register. You can do that at 180 South 1st Street at the district office, as all school offices are closed at this time. And they can help you to know what school your child would be assigned to if they were not participating in independent learning. Also, with that, regardless of, you know, independent learning happening, this program happening or not, we still need you to register. So we want to make sure that we have classrooms and seats for our students and materials for our students, because again, that's what we provide in our district. So, all right, I may.
So una de las preguntas, ¿verdad? Fue para familias nuevas si tienen que registrar todavía en las escuelas. Y la respuesta es sí, ¿verdad? Sí, todavía tienen que registrar con el distrito. Ahorita todas las oficinas de las escuelas están cerradas, o sí tienen que ir a la oficina del distrito y allá sí pueden registrarse. Y como dijo la señora Mac, que sí es importante que registren, porque así aseguramos que todos los estudiantes tengan lo que necesiten.
And I have not received any other questions at this time. And so, Mr. Giramonti, if we can talk about next steps.
Well, let's not, if I want to open up to other questions, if you're welcome to put a question in the chat if you'd like, or if you want to unmute,
raise your hand,
talk to us. You don't have to raise your hand. There's only a few of us. You can just unmute and talk to us. Feel free.
There we go.
Oh, Jewel.
Miss Fink. You're on mute, Jewel.
Jewel, we can't hear you because you need to unmute.
I think she's
working on it.
Okay.
Hey, Jewel, I'll set it to ask you to unmute, and then you'll get the prompt. Do you see it?
There she is.
Okay, now I'm good. Let's say that I have a middle school child and I choose to do independent learning, and I'm, willing to sign the contract and all. But in middle school, students are required to take PE, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How is my child going to participate in physical education?
Well, Jewel, do you want me to take that question? Sorry, I just jumped right in there.
You're great. No, you're great.
Yeah, that's good.
So physical education is something that the teacher and the family will work out together. It could be a physical education log. It could be proof of a membership at a gymnasium. It could be a student who's in a competitive sport. There are many ways to satisfy that requirement at the middle school level. When we get into 9th grade and there's some 9th grade PE standards, that becomes a different story.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking of too. And my second question, I have a high school student, and I elect to have him or her go to the high school. But in the last year, the year that we were on hybrid, he's at grade level and everything, but failed, let's say, his English class. So is it possible to go to school, be in the regular program, and just do this independent learning program for that English class?
Okay. Nick, do you want me to take that, or do you want to take it?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so not recommended. So Dixon High School offers students the opportunity to repeat a failed English class. And that way we know it will meet the CSU standards, A through G requirements. And we can fit it. If that's the one class, Ms. Fink, that they have not passed, that's easy to make up during the school day without being on an independent study contract.
Thank you.
And just on that note, we've had experience. So for those who don't know, I was the high school principal, for Dixon High School principal for many years, and Yvette worked there for a long time as well. Students that try to blend the programs, it really becomes challenging for them. It's not a particularly successful model for most kids. Certainly some were fine.
If I can allow Ms. Echeverria to translate here for a second, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. So la pregunta, ¿verdad? Fue si yo tengo un estudiante que está entre el sexto o octavo grado, algo que sí es requerido es la educación física. So, ¿cómo lo harían si están en el aprendizaje independiente? Y la respuesta es que eso sería algo de hablar con el instructor, en el sentido de que hay diferentes modos de poder completar ese requerido, en el sentido de que si el estudiante hace deportes, ¿verdad?, afuera de la escuela, si va al gimnasio, cosas así. Eso sí dependería en el instructor y la familia. Mi otra pregunta fue, si yo tengo un estudiante que está en la secundaria, y si vamos a decir que pasó todas las clases menos una, sería posible que el estudiante regrese a la clase regular, pero no más haga el aprendizaje independiente para esa clase. Y la respuesta fue de que no, ¿verdad? Eso no es algo que estamos viendo para hacer. Y como dijo Mr. Germani, algo que él vio es de que tratando de hacer los dos, yendo a clase regular y teniendo pues aprendizaje independiente para los estudiantes, sí se le hace difícil. So no necesariamente queremos ver eso.
Thank you. Up next, we have Tasha Peter, who has a question.
Hi, so we're new to this district, and the district that we're coming from for the 2021-22 school year, the district is launching a virtual academy with also a independent learning program. How did Dixon Unified School District decide to launch the home study learning versus the virtual academy?
So if I could, at this point, it's resources. We're not a large district, and I don't know that if you came from a large district or not. We feel that this is a program that is one that we can actually execute and manage successfully. We do know that there are other districts around us that are putting those programs in place. We do have concerns about some of the costs of those programs, if we'll just be blunt with you. If we do have enough interest, that does, as I mentioned earlier, that does allow us some more flexibility with our model. It's a little chicken before the egg for us here. If we design a virtual program and then we don't have enough folks and we're out with a lot of resources, that could be really challenging for us. So that's essentially where we've arrived at right now. Not that we're close to that, it's just that we can't promise that kind of program right now.
Okay, thank you. And if it's okay, I have another question.
Absolutely, please.
So Nick, with you saying that if there's not enough interest for the independent studies program, would Dixon partner with a neighboring district to maybe put those students into their program?
That is a great question that I don't have the answer to. And I don't, and the reason I'm reluctant to answer the first part of the question is I actually don't get to decide what that magic number is. That really is up to the governing board with, based on, advice and counsel from the folks who work in district. So, what not enough interest looks like, it may be that 10 is enough families for us to do this, if that's what the board decides. I just can't speak for them. I've not heard of the other piece. It's an interesting idea. I do know that other districts would be glad to take our students from us. And whether or not they'd be willing to partner with us is an interesting concept. I can't speak to it at this point, and I apologize for that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to
welcome, by the
Dixon
way.
again.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
All right, Ms. Echeverria.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. So la pregunta que fue, ¿verdad? Es la persona que habló es un padre que viene de otro distrito y dijo que en ese distrito donde estaba, que ellos están haciendo una academia virtual y la pregunta fue, ¿verdad? De que ¿por qué nosotros pues no estamos haciendo algo así? Y la respuesta es que pues somos un distrito chico, ¿verdad? Y como dijimos, eso todavía estamos en los principios de planearlo y también, como dijimos, decimos, en el diseño de este programa, todo depende en el interés de familias. Y, nosotros no sabemos, pues, el número para poder hacer este programa. Eso sí es algo que es decisión de nuestra mesa directiva. Y después, so a lo mejor, como dijo, a lo mejor 10 personas sí es suficiente para hacer este programa, pero como somos un distrito chico, sí estamos empezando con este programa independiente. Y la otra pregunta fue que en caso si no había suficiente de estudiantes o familias interesados en hacer este programa, si el distrito estaría disponible a hacer como un negocio con los otros distritos para ver en caso si nuestros estudiantes que querían hacer un programa aprendizaje independiente lo pueden hacer en otro distrito. Y la respuesta, verdad, es que eso sí es algo interesante para pensar, pero no necesariamente tenemos una respuesta para ello.
Are there any other questions for us tonight?
I am seeing none in the chat at this time, and I am connecting. Well, Sue. Hey there, Sue. How are you? Has a question.
Okay, now I got it. Hi, how are you guys doing?
Hey there.
So I've been listening from the beginning, and I just had one question. I know that at this moment, you don't know a date as far as when you will know. Is there like a deadline where like you will know these answers by, I don't know, end of July, early August?
So great question. And I should jump in here. So the next part of our agenda is actually sort of talk about some next steps for us. So as the initial survey indicated that subsequent to this meeting, we're going to send out a more formal, hey, we're interested in this. We understand kind of the commitments that are associated with this. So that will be available tomorrow morning for our families to fill out. We're going to ask that families have that filled out for us by July 10th. And again, it's not, nothing is formal until that master agreement is signed. I do want to say that, but we're asking folks that if you're going to fill that out, you're telling us, hey, we'd like to do this. This is where we think we're going. That July 10th date is important because our next school board meeting is July 15th. And the school board really needs to be able to give us some direction as far as what model looks like, et cetera. So I would anticipate that July 15th, we have a pretty good sense. It certainly would be our goal as to one, the viability of the program, and two, what that program is, that it becomes more sort of crystallized what it's going to look like for our families and kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
So esa pregunta, ¿verdad? Fue de que si hay una fecha donde las familias, pues el distrito ya tenga que saber cuántas familias estén interesadas. Como dijo Mr. Giramani, que sí va a haber un formulario que va a salir mañana, que los padres y las familias que estén interesados para hacer este programa, que sí lo van a tener que llenar para el 10 de julio, porque sí tenemos una junta con la mesa directiva el 15 de julio, donde todo esto va a estar presentado para poder continuar con los pasos.
All right, Mr.
Great questions,
G.
everybody.
Really good ones. Are there any other questions tonight? Seeing none, that concludes our meeting for this evening in regards to independent learning. Like Mr. Giramonti said, the form will be up tomorrow, both in English and Spanish on our website. And so we do ask that if you're truly committed to this, that you make sure that you get that filled out and talk, with your family about this and really answer the questions that we have for you in regards to our agreement. Fully and just honestly, if you will. So,
and one other thing, if you have friends, neighbors, other family members, et cetera, this video will be posted as well. We feel like we've covered, the questions that y'all had really kind of gave us the big broad overview of where we are right now. So hopefully folks can get a sense of that. So, okay.
Perfecto, con eso ya terminamos la junta, ¿verdad? Y como dijimos, sí, el formulario sí va a estar listo para mañana y nomás es importante, como dijo la señora Mac, de que sí están de verdad interesados en este programa, de asegurarse de sí hacer el formulario. Y con eso ya terminamos.
Okay, thank you all so much for coming. And it's not gonna be as hot tomorrow, so good news.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Hi, thank you.